Hey guys, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney visited Donald Trump this morning, where a sort of impromptu press conference was held, which often seems to occur with Donald Trump, where they were meeting before the meeting was supposed to actually start, but Trump spoke for nearly 40 minutes, and what ensued was a quite a vast array of topics that were covered with the newly elected Canadian Prime Minister. And I have some thoughts on some of the things that were discussed before this consequential meeting with the newly elected Prime Minister. But before we look at all that, I'm Max Lopez. This is the Blue Wave. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So, Mark Carney won a very, very surprising election where he was able to turn around his political fortunes and beat the Conservative in Canada, largely based on backlash against the American president, Donald Trump, and different policy points that he's put forward, such as annexing Canada to become the 51st state, which was briefly brought up here in this meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney saying that Canada is not up for sale, whereas Trump is saying never say never in terms of that policy point. Really, I'll start off with that, breaking down the 51st state nonsense, because that's what it is totally nonsense. This is a distraction, right? This is Trump throwing the media and throwing his supporters a bone for something for them to latch onto, posing himself as some sort of strong negotiator who gets his way and is going to get his way in this case no matter what. And what's being shown is that time and time again, just a little bit of resistance to Donald Trump's White House, and ultimately Donald Trump folds. And really, this is just a total distraction to distract from the fallout of Trump's disastrous economic policy that he wants his followers and the majority of America to believe that it is helping them, when we have tons and tons of evidence that shows that exactly the opposite is happening. Trump said that we have a $200 billion trade deficit with Canada, which is just not accurate. The highest estimates show it being 60 billion, with many other economists saying that it's much lower, maybe even half of that. But the thing is that Canada is our largest trading partner, so having a trade deficit to them is not necessarily the end of the world, because that deficit is made up in other parts of the economy that we benefit from trading with Canada with. He said no deals, or sorry, Trump said 90 deals in 90 days with 90 countries are getting signed for his tariffs. Yeah, right. That's what I have to say to that. Yeah, right. And I don't believe that Trump is nearly anywhere as far along in negotiating these trade deals as he's saying. And what we're learning is that with one of our largest trading partners, Canada, we don't have any deal being worked on or negotiated whatsoever. And we're further away now from a deal with China than we ever have been. And this is absolutely disastrous for the United States economy, where lower and middle Americans are going to be paying the cost of Donald Trump's tariffs. And we'll look at how he's just sort of totally dismissive of American consumers' concerns about these tariffs and the effect on the economy, with Trump basically boiling it all down to, well, kids are going to have less dolls than they did, and maybe they can get by with 2 or 3 dolls instead of 30 or 40 dolls, which we'll look at later on. And another thing here is that Trump referred to Americans as luxury buyers in this meeting. It's just so out of touch, right? You have 60% of the country that's living paycheck to paycheck. Most families have anywhere from $500 to about $1,000 in their savings account. There are not a large amount of luxury buyers in the United States of America. And many people out there are just trying to make ends meet, or just trying to make it. They're just trying to keep a roof over their head and keep food in their bellies. And I think that Donald Trump's comments on calling Americans luxury buyers, it really just shows how out of touch he is, and how in a different reality Donald Trump truly, truly lives in. And lastly here, Trump was saying how we don't want Canadian cars. We don't want Canadian this, Canadian that. But the thing is that there's no such thing as a quote unquote Canadian car being made in Canadian factories with a Canadian flag or some sort of Canadian symbol on it, that are being made and then shipped to America and bought in American dealerships, and then all that money is going to Canada. That's not how it works. Okay, I've been to Detroit, Michigan, and you can see Canada, right? On certain parts of Detroit, you can see Canada across the water. And in fact, there's multiple areas where if you're driving around and there's like signs that indicate, don't make a wrong turn here because you'll end up in Canada and there's no way to easily get back. When cars are built, they often, no, not often, all of them have a mishmash of different parts from different countries. And an American car that Ford or GM sells will often have parts coming from Canada that go across the border, back and forth multiple times sometimes. So this idea that, oh, this is a good thing because Trump is just ultimately helping American auto dealers by lowering or by not taking Canadian cars, that's going to help out American dealerships. It's just not true whatsoever, because what's happening in the meantime is that anybody that needs a repair on their car, or anyone that needs a part for any reason whatsoever, they are going to be paying much, much more. And in fact, again, cars that are made in America often include many, many sorts of different Canadian parts that go across and back and across and back the border. And this is only going to make it more difficult for Americans to afford vehicles in this country. And so, we'll see where this meeting goes. I don't have very high expectations for any real major developments to come out of this meeting based on this impromptu Q&A that Trump did before this meeting with Mark Carney. And another thing I want to note is that one of the main reasons that Carney was elected was backlash against Donald Trump and his administration. And Trump was, very eager to, well, firstly, he absolutely trashed him on Truth Social, calling him all sorts of nasty things. And then when in person, thankfully, he was a little bit more cordial with the Prime Minister of Canada. But it really just shows Trump's all over the place, right? There's no coherent strategy. There's no through line of thinking or policy that drives Trump. It's really a wake up and feel this way, a wake up and feel that way. His emotions change rapidly based on who's in front of him and who's saying certain things in front of him. And it makes for a time when the economy and American consumers are very, very wary of Donald Trump's leadership and of the haphazardness of his decision making. And, you know, it's not getting us anywhere in these trade deals. And it's certainly hurting our relationship with our largest trading partner, Canada, which we've had such a long and great relationship with for so long, that Donald Trump seemingly doesn't have a problem with throwing out all of it out the window. So that's all I got for you guys in this one. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.